Our State of the U.S. segment tonight. Senate Republicans finally introduced their bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. And if I could sum up my reaction in one word, it would be disappointed. Republicans have had almost 8 years to plan for the repeal of Obamacare, and this is the best they can do. Republicans need to stop trying to pass their own Obamacare light and start standing up for conservative principles in health care. Watch.
We can get this done. We can get to yes. But the key to getting it done, to getting to yes, is we need common sense reforms that lower the cost of premiums so that health insurance is more affordable for families who are struggling.
Senator, the idea that we're going to allow the death spiral of Obamacare to continue, but we're going to subsidize it, is just not a very Republican notion. I'm open to voting for it, but I think with a group of people, we have a little better chance of actually getting it modified.
So right now you're a no vote?
The four of us have said we cannot support the bill in its current iteration.
Joining me now, former Chief of Staff to Senator Mike Lee and current president of the Sutherland Institute, Boyd Matheson. Boyd, good to see you.
Good to see you, Liz.
All right,
Welcome
Boyd, this
Friday.
is Happy Friday. This is going to sound so cynical, especially for a Friday, but it comes no surprise to me that the Senate Republicans kept this bill a secret. Now that we've seen it, we can understand why. It's terrible. They didn't want people to see what was in it.
Yeah, it's classic Washington business as usual coming out of Leader McConnell's office. You do it in secret. You drop it on a weekend. You allow only 20 hours to actually debate it and amend it, and you jam it through. So a lot of the criticism that Leader McConnell issued 8.5 years ago is now coming full circle. And unfortunately, that doesn't help the American people. It doesn't move the agenda forward. There's some nice nibbling at the edges in the bill. There's some things that get us a little closer to federalism and some state flexibility. But we got a long, long way to go to get a real healthcare outcomes for Americans kind of bill.
Right. I mean, I'm in favor of the fact that it defunds Planned Parenthood for a year. Certainly there are things about it that do make it better than Obamacare, but not significantly enough. Not getting government out of healthcare. This just gives it to Republicans in government instead of Democrats in government. And I don't understand this either. I don't understand why Republicans did this. We elected Republicans to the Senate and to the House to stand up for conservative principles, and we just saw this week when Karen Handel won in Georgia's 6th district that conservatism can win. It doesn't matter about money. It doesn't matter about suave young candidates. Conservative principles, the principles on which our country was founded, win, and it seems like the Republicans in Congress don't even care.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's shocking to me that they don't trust the principles. The principles work. We've seen them work for several hundred years. We've seen them work recently. And so I don't understand why Leader McConnell doesn't trust the principles and the process that the founders set up. And let's debate it. Let's get it on the floor. I would love to see a debate between the Republicans and the Democrats on the merits. Let's talk principles. Let's talk policy. Let's talk about what the future of healthcare really ought to look like. And that would be it would be fantastic television. And it would be good for the American people because we'd get to the right results.
It would, because what's happening this weekend is it's just a war of talking points. In fact, I don't even think it's smart politics, regardless of the policy, for Republicans to drop the bill just a couple days before they're going to vote on it, because it allows the Democrats to define the narrative. The first thing the American people are doing is looking at the Democrats' response. I mean, we had Elizabeth Warren talking about her response to it. We have the Democrats pivoting to that CBO number for the bill in the House, saying 24 million Americans are going to lose their insurance plans under the Obamacare repeal bill. Well, if there was enough time, Republicans actually put the effort into saying, well, why don't you step back and remember that 30 million Americans lost their health insurance plans under Obamacare? That actually might convince people to get on board with it. But now the Democrats are just driving the narrative.
That's right. It's one more example of not controlling your message and being on point. And you brought this up earlier, Liz. Why in the world do we think that Republican bureaucrats are going to do a better job of managing our health care than Democrat bureaucrats? They're bureaucrats, and that's not where the system needs to be. You know, one of the things that we're not talking about that we should be is portability. So right now there's about 10 million Americans who are not insured or who can't because of their pre-existing conditions and so on. But it's not like we've become poorer as a nation, so people can't get it, or sicker. It's the fact that the average American changes jobs every 3.8 years, and then they're unemployed for somewhere between 3 to 6 months. And if they have an accident, if they have a diagnosis, then they become part of that. 10 million is a solvable problem in terms of the uninsured. But if we keep adding because all of the incentives go to big business in terms of the insurance. You know, if you can be portable from job to job and geographically, that completely changes the dynamic. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about making sure we can bail out the insurance companies instead of talking about how do we get better care for the American people.
Right, and I mean, that's a good question. How do we do that? What is missing in this bill that would allow that to happen?
Yeah, we need that amendment process opened wide up, because I guarantee you someone like a Senator Lee or a Ben Sass or a Marco Rubio or someone would come up with that kind of portability plan. We've talked about it. I mean, President Trump campaigned on it. Get rid of the geographic lines.
Right.
Get rid of this idea that we have to lock it into one business in terms of our insurance. But we're not having those kinds of discussions. One, because the Republican leadership hasn't set the agenda. They just dropped a bill that nobody had seen. So there's no way to really create a narrative or frame the debate in a way that you can actually have that conversation with the American people. They should have locked in and planted the flag and said, here's what the future of healthcare needs to look like. Here's the first step we're going to take, and then we're going to take the rest of these steps. But right now, it's sort of a pseudo repeal with no real repeal, and the Democrats
and
are
they should be
controlling the narrative.
encouraging. They should be encouraging debate too. They should say, "Here's our vision. Here's how we're going to do it. Now bring all your concerns and let us address them." But they're not. And I mean, in my opinion, that's why it's not appealing to anybody. It's not appealing to Democrats because they don't want to repeal Obamacare, and it's not appealing to Republicans because it doesn't fully repeal Obamacare. Boyd, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here.